first 11 verses. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem village, Judah territory, this was during Herod's kingship, a band of scholars arrived in Jerusalem from the east. They asked around, "Where can we find and pay homage to the newborn king of the Jews? We observed a star in the eastern sky that signaled his birth. We're on pilgrimage to worship him." When word of their inquiry got to Herod, he was terrified, and not Herod alone, but most of Jerusalem as well. Herod lost no time. He gathered all the high priests and religion scholars in the city together and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" They told him, "Bethlehem, Judah territory. The prophet Micah wrote it plainly. It's you, Bethlehem, in Judah's land, no longer bringing up the rear. From you will come the leader who will shepherd, rule my people, my Israel." Herod then arranged a secret meeting with the scholars from the east. Pretending to be as devout as they were, he got them to tell him exactly when the birth announcement star appeared. Then he told them the prophecy about Bethlehem and said, "Go find this child, leave no stone unturned. As soon as you find him, send word and I'll join you at once in your worship." Instructed by the king, they set off. Then the star appeared again, the same star they had seen in the eastern skies. It led them until it hovered over the place of the child. They could hardly contain themselves. They were in the right place. They had arrived at the right time. They entered the house and saw the child in the arms of Mary, his mother. Overcome, they kneeled and worshipped him. Then they opened their luggage and presented gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The Wingnuts always get the best press. It was no different as December 21st approached. The talking heads, when they weren't predicting doom and gloom for the United States headed in a barrel over the fiscal cliff, cut to the doom and gloom coming from the apocalyptic wackos who decided the Mayan calendar foretold the end of the world on December 21st, 2012. In fact, however, if anyone had bothered to listen, the descendants of these Mayans made a compelling presentation at the United Nations a few weeks earlier, explaining the role of calendars in their ancient sacred traditions. It would appear that for the holy men and women of the old Mayan culture, the alignment of cosmic forces reaching a culmination at the end of December 2012 had nothing whatsoever to do with apocalyptic or catastrophic world events. Instead, the significance of this convergence indicated the end of an era and the dawn of a new age, an event the Mayans, who tended even then to take a wrong view of planetary evolution, believed happens once every 64,000 years. With December 21st, 2012 now behind us, you might be wondering what relevance, if any, this has for our lives. The problem with answering that question is a classic forest for the trees conundrum. We are situated in the middle of it. It isn't theoretical, after all, when it's your own life, which makes it hard for us to gain perspective on what is happening around us. But there are voices in our own wilderness who are calling that a new era is indeed upon us. For example, I have heard climate scientists say that we have already crossed the threshold into a new physical reality for the planet. There is no way to predict with any accuracy how the human race will fare, how many people might die as a result of the planetary changes, how our means of surviving and thriving might necessarily change to meet this new reality. But some well-respected scientists believe a new epoch in Earth's life is already underway, not unlike when the tropical home of the dinosaurs morphed into a planet covered primarily in ice. That is to say, change isn't coming, change is here. I don't tell you any of this to frighten you. You can do your own research and come to your own conclusions about what might or might not happen over the next 2 or 3 generations of humanity on planet Earth. But we stand on the precipice of a brand new year, And I do believe, in many regards, we are also peering into the beginning of a new age for many aspects of our lives. And as you have brought yourself specifically to church today, as opposed to any of the other places you might choose to be right now, we may as well look at how our lives as Christians might be leaning forward into a new momentum towards some brave new world. Sometimes, being a part of something new is no more complicated than being the one or ones who pay attention. This, in many ways, describes the situation our Magi found themselves in a little over 2 millennia ago. These scholars from the East, Matthew tells us, had been paying attention to the skies when a new and unusual star appeared to them in the eastern sky. Now that in itself is rather extraordinary, and I wish so much that we knew more about these fellows. The mystery that shrouds their identity has led to many speculations about who they might have been. For example, these men are sometimes referred to as kings, because it seems likely that only men of some nobility would have the means and the free time to occupy themselves so intently with stargazing. A common laborer would have, out of necessity, kept his eyes on the ground or to the work in his hands, and likely not had much time for astronomy. Also, it would cost a great deal of money to undertake a journey like theirs to ancient Palestine. And so again, we assume that if they were not royalty, then at least noblemen. But this is no reason not to admire them for their effort. Our society is full of examples of very wealthy people who are so consumed with their own worth, they seldom pay attention or move a muscle for the sake of curiosity or anyone else's benefit. So rich or not, I believe there is much that we can learn from our Magi. As I have considered this Epiphany Sunday, which, as Jeff mentioned earlier, is what this 12th day after Christmas is called, I have looked for ways that we can make the story of the Magi relevant to us. After all, the word epiphany in Greek, epiphanos, means to uncover or to reveal. And so let us uncover what we can from Matthew's scripture for today. For it seems to me highly likely that we, like the Magi, are standing at the dawn of a new reality for humankind. And maybe it is up to us to act accordingly when others can't or won't. So the first thing, and I have already alluded to this, that I think we can safely borrow from our Magi friends is the ability to look carefully and attentively at what is around us. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all run out and buy fancy telescopes, although I understand there's a few of those at your house already, or enroll in astronomy classes, although that may be very interesting. In fact, I don't think those would even be the right instruments for the job anymore. Stargazing may have served the Mayans and the Magi well, and I may be dead wrong here, but I don't think the answers we seek are up there anymore, as much as they are out here. Our single most vexing problem right now within Christianity, I believe, hovers somewhere in the dark shadows between denial and despair. There are those good, God-fearing Christian folk who refuse to acknowledge that it is no longer 1957. They see the Christian faith through the lens of a time when the church was the cultural center of the community, when people gave to their congregations not because they were asked to, but just because that's what everybody did. For these folks, even when they open their eyes long enough to acknowledge that Christianity worldwide is in decline, they try to fix the problem with the same old nails and screws, the ones that worked half a century ago. Little do they know that the problem isn't even made out of wood anymore. It is digitized now. It's technical and virtual and humming along at the speed of gigabytes. Of course, on the other end of the spectrum are those who obsess over the changes beset upon the worldwide movement of Christianity, and their response to what they see is abject despair. They might express that despair as xenophobia, proclaiming hatred for Muslims and others they believe threaten the welfare of Christianity. Or they might express that despair as resignation, like a convict on death row